How's it going? Cody with Mayfly Guide Service. Today we're going to tie my most favorite carp fly. This is the hybrid. I really haven't met a carp that's willing to eat, that doesn't want to eat this fly. Any new water I ever go to, water that I know, really well, this is always my go-to fly that I'm going to start out with. This thing is tasty to those carp out there. So let's kind of talk about some of the materials that we're going to use. We're going to use a size 8 nymph hook. This hook is 2x heavy, 2x wide, 2x short. It's a really stout hook. Carp, you can catch them up to 20, 30 pounds here in Utah, and they will straighten out a hook. These guys don't straighten out very often. You have a big one if you straighten that hook out. We're going to use some medium black bead chain eyes. I'll also use large as well. I'll use different colors like silver and gold. We are going to use some red chenille. This Hare's ice dub in golden brown. You don't necessarily have to use this exact color. Any sort of drab color that's like a black and olive, rust, orange, brown, something like that. I like to use it with a little bit of flash in there. I think that kind of gets these fish kind of fired up. We're also going to use this squirrel zonker, this pine squirrel in black. We can also use this in a natural color as well. And that's pretty much all the materials. I like to have a Melvin's 2x4 double IPA. It kind of helps while I'm tying these. We're also just going to use some black 6/0 thread. So let's get started with this fly. If you guys are not if you haven't tried carp fly fishing yet, if you're a fly fisher, you need to do it. Carp exist in every state, I think in the lower 48, and they are a blast. They can be right in your backyard. And, I only have to drive, I'm lucky enough, I only have to drive 15 minutes down the road, and I have some of the best carp water right here in Salt Lake. So we're going to start out by just putting some black thread onto our hook. Snip off that extra. We're going to grab our bead chain eyes. We'll attach these first. I'm just going to get a pair of these. I'm going to wrap these in towards the eye of the hook. I don't want to crowd the eye, so I'm going to leave some room here. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get your first few wraps on there, just to get it to stay in place. That'll do it. So we're just going to figure 8 these on. I'm going both directions here, doing some figure 8s over the top. Then I'm just going to go one direction, stick with that for a little bit. Now I'm going to switch it up, go the other way. Maybe I'll go back to a few more figure 8s. Then I'm going to go in the front by the eyes, and I'm going to do some wraps right there. I'm going to build up some thread, because what that's going to do is cinch down all those wraps that you made before. Now I'm going to go behind the eyes, make some wraps, build up some thread. That's going to pull everything straight down, if I could do it. And those things are on there pretty good. You can also zap that with a little bit of glue, and you know that those aren't moving. Although I will say that I don't like to use glue on any of my carp flies. Carp are very sensitive to smell. When I try and tie carp flies onto my tippet, I'll try not to touch the fly very much either. So we're going to work our way down a little bit past the bend. We're going to grab our red chenille. Maybe I'm going to cut off about 1.5 inches of this. So this fly, because the bead chain eyes are on the top of the hook, it's going to ride upside down. That's exactly how we want it to ride. A lot of these carp flies, and the ones that you're going to find, The ones that are really willing to eat are going to be tailing. Their nose is going to be down in the water, tail is going to be sticking up. We want that fly right on the bottom, and we don't want the point of the hook digging into the bottom. You know, we could get snagged on a branch, in the mud, in the gravel, on a rock. So we want that hook point straight up so we can drag these flies along the bottom and get these carp interested. So that's good there, and that's why I always wrap a little bit past the bend of the hook on this one, because it's going to ride upside down. I want this tail, this worm, sticking straight up in the water. Right there is good. We're now going to grab this ice dub in golden brown. And with dubbing, you know, less is more. You don't want to grab a whole bunch of this out of your pack. You want to start small. So to put this dubbing on, I'm just going to lay it down on my thread, pinch my fingers together as tight as I can, and then pull them away from each other. Squeezing my fingers as tight as I can. The nice thing about this fly is that we don't need really tight dubbing wraps, so it's okay if it's a little bit loose. We want this to kind of be buggy, sort of rough all over the place. I'm going to put just a little bit more on. You can always add dubbing. It's pretty hard to take dubbing off. Again, I'm pinching my fingers as tight as I can together, moving them the opposite directions. This dubbing doesn't have to be on that thread really tight because we're actually going to comb this out a little bit later. It's probably good right there. Now I'm going to grab my rabbit strip. So if all the fibers are going this way, I want to tie it in from this side. I like to pull off that last little bit there so I can tie this in. It's not going to be super bulky. I'm going to hold it at a 45-degree angle going away from me. Tie that in. Just make sure that's nice and secure in there. And then I'm going to wrap back towards the eyes, right in behind them. Now I'm going to wrap this away from me. And as I do this, I'm going to pull these fibers back towards the tail because I don't want to cover up those fibers. I want them all going back down towards the point of the hook. We're going to get these to snug right up in behind the eyes. That's probably good right there. Tie this in. Snip off my extra. I'm going to try and pull all those fibers back. It's okay if you capture a few. Try and get those last little stragglers out of the way. It's all right if there's a few that don't. Once this thing gets wet, everything's going to pull nice and flat. So I'm going to tie that in good. Now I'm maybe going to do a few more figure eights. A few wraps right around the eye. Grab my whip finishing tool. Snip my thread off. And the last couple things I'm going to do, I have these tweezers that have a little bit of Velcro on them. I use this as a brush. I'm going to go in behind that rabbit strip and I'm going to brush out some of that ice dub that I put on there. What that does is it gives this fly a little bit of a pop. With most of these carp flies, you want them a drab color. Like I said, olives, browns, blacks, rust, kind of orangey colors. And I'm just going to flick that out. You don't want anything too flashy, real fancy looking flies. They eat some pretty boring ones. These are great because you can tie a bunch of them and they're really effective. And I think just that little bit of flash underneath there helps, especially if you are in dirty water and if it's sunny out, that may catch that carp's attention. Just to brush that out a little. We don't want to pull too much of it out. That's good there. This tail is probably a little bit long. I'm going to snip that a little shorter. And I'm going to grab my lighter. Just zap the end of that really quick. Looks nice and wormy. And that right there is the hybrid, really easy fly. I would say that if I find carp that are willing to eat, this is always my go-to fly. This thing is really effective. It's going to ride upside down, just like this. Those bead chain eyes right there are going to hold it so the point of the hook is sticking up. That worm tail is going to stick right up, and you can drag this along the bottom to get those carp's attention. You know, the ones that you're looking for are always going to be nose down, tail up. If you can get a cast, you know, on a dinner plate right in front of their face, this one is always my go-to. If you haven't tried carp fishing, you've got to get into it. They are by far my most favorite freshwater fish to target. And good luck on this one. Happy tying, and go out there and catch some carp. It's fun to do. And if you're looking for some social distancing, you're not going to find anybody else out there chasing carp. Have a good one, guys.